Hi everybody, this is Matt. Thanks for watching and welcome back for another flight in the Luscombe today. Well, today we have got still some beautiful weather in Iowa. However, we do have some very interesting winds. They're gusting from 9 to 16 knots and they're variable, so they're changing all over the place. But we're going to take another tour through Iowa, southern Iowa especially, and Memory Lane. Full disclaimer, I am not a certified flight instructor or anything like that. I'm just simply a guy that loves to fly and wants to share his passion of aviation with others. So this is not flight instruction whatsoever. That is definitely some interesting wind conditions there. And she is bumpy today. Well, that's definitely some turbulence. I'm going to continue to take you on a little tour of southern Iowa. And where we're going is we're going to come into a part of southern Iowa that had an extensive amount of coal mining involved. Many times people, when they think about Iowa, they think that all of our roads are absolutely north and south, and that's not necessarily the case. And boy, let me tell you what. I am in an area of high lift right now. Today would be a great day to be up in a glider. And just as I say that, we enter into some sink. There were certain areas of Iowa that had extensive coal mining. Many towns were actually created because of the mining industry. I'm taking a turn here over to the west, and you're looking at the towns of Melcher, Dallas. Two separate towns, originally separated by a railroad, and these were coal mining towns. So I have in my family tree some relatives that actually came from this area. And currently there's no mining activities happening here that I'm aware of. So I'm going to return on course to the southwest here. But yes, Iowa was extensively mined. The current state capital, Des Moines, Iowa, is heavily undermined by underground coal mines. They're no longer being used, but occasionally we do get sinkholes and things like that. We also have an issue with a rather toxic natural gas that is a byproduct of coal mining, and it's called radon. So many Iowa homes have high levels of radon, which contributes to a lot of cancers, according to the medical professionals. Well, once again, we have fantastic visibility. In a video that I did with my daughter yesterday when we were flying, we were over in the Oskaloosa area and we could see downtown Des Moines. And when I charted it out, that was 56 nautical miles of visibility that we had. Absolutely incredible. We are certainly hitting our share of updrafts and downdrafts of lift and sink today. In an airplane like this Luscombe, which has got fairly light wing loading to it, they can get a little bit active on you, so just simply have to adapt or get used to it, or fly of your airplane. But even the heavy airplanes get impacted by turbulence like this. Now there's an updraft. One reason that you'll hear me talking quite a bit about updrafts and downdrafts and lift is because I have a lot of time in gliders and sailplanes, and the one thing that we would always be hunting for was lift, because that was the only way that you stayed aloft. And for anybody who is currently a pilot, if you've never flown a glider or a sailplane, I'd strongly encourage you to do that, because it will definitely help your stick and rudder skills, and it'll teach you an awful lot about the air. One of the most fantastic experiences that I had in my life flying was in a glider, and the glider was at what was called a sport canopy, which basically meant open cockpit. So you could actually hear the wind as it went over the wings. And as you got close to a stall, you would actually hear the wind stop. When you would get out of the stall, you'd be hearing it flying again. Absolutely incredible. And when it comes to landings with a glider, you've got to be able to make a good one, because you only have one chance. There are no go-arounds in a glider. Directly off the nose at the 12 o'clock position is the city of Sheraton, Iowa. There is a lot of coal mining done in this area. You can see an extended area of buildings ahead of me, and those are actually warehouses for probably the largest grocery chain that is in Iowa, which is called Hy-Vee. So originally they had their headquarters down here, but those are their warehouses, and you'll see their 18-wheeler trucks driving all the time down here. The town of Sheraton not only had a lot of coal production around it, but also a lot of railroad traffic. As a kid, there was one time where my grandmother was going out west. We came down here so she could pick up a train, and it was one of those big luxury liner type of trains from back in the early 1960s. And it was an amazing sight for a kid to see that thing come into the terminal and see Grandma get aboarded and take back off. This part of the state is a little bit more heavy as far as timber goes, timberland. Also tends to be hillier. So while there is a lot of farming that goes on, you can see just by looking out the camera lens that there's a lot of timber. Coming into view will be the Sheraton, Iowa Airport. My voice shifted a little bit there, but that was because I just went for a heck of a ride because of turbulence. Way bumpier today than forecast. The Sheraton Airport here has a fairly rich history of how it was constructed. You have a north-south runway that's about 3,000 feet, and essentially an east-west runway that is closer to 4,800 feet. But looks can be deceiving, and on the left, that approach to that runway is actually downhill. So you can be standing where the hangars are, somebody lands right down there, or they're back taxiing their airplane. You cannot see them from the hangars. So their friends is the Sheraton Airport. And turning back to the west, here's one of the main railroad tracks that went through downtown Sheraton. Now, there used to be more, but the railroad industry has changed, and it's suffered over the last 75 years. There's We're actually not going to go that much farther. I just wanted to show you the town of Lucas, Iowa. That's spelled L-U-C-A-S. Lima, Uniform, Charlie, Alpha, Sierra. Lucas was kind of pivotal when it came to coal mining in Iowa. And that is some really rough air with a lot of thermals. It makes the Luscombe just simply want to climb like a homesick angel. There's that much lift. But this little town here is the community of Lucas, and this was very pivotal for coal mining operations in the state of Iowa back in the early 1900s. My grandfather talked about this a lot. He was a coal miner for his entire life. Alright, now we're going to turn back to the east. And if I can find that left again, we're going to use that for an assist to get us up a little bit higher. There you see the city of Sheridan coming back into view. Yeah, it's really wild. I haven't changed anything, and I've got a rate of climb currently of about 700 feet per minute. So we'll just let this take us up to about 3,500 feet. Another thing that I'll point out for you, since we've got such fantastic visibility today, is coming off the nose in the far distance is another one of Iowa's man-made lakes for flood control. So in the distance there is Lake Rathbun. You can see it there. So that is Lake Rathbun. And then this area around Sheridan off to the east and the southeast, that's heavily timbered. We used to know it as 1,000 acres forest. So we would come down to 1,000 acres and we would hunt or just hike and see what kind of adventures that we could have. Timberland in the state of Iowa has been in a state of continual decline over the years as we've taken down timber and created more farmland. So I've got Lake Rathbun off to my right, Lake Red Rock off to my left, and ahead of me, roughly about I would say 22 miles, is the city of Albia, Iowa. Albia had an incredible amount of coal mining activity around it. The majority of my family on my mother's side worked the coal mines down in this part of Iowa. Well, the air today is incredibly turbulent, very treacherous. This would not be the type of day that you would want to take a friend or a relative flying if they were prone to air sickness whatsoever. This would actually be the type of flight that could scare a person, and we don't really want to do that in aviation. But many times, how many of you folks have been in a major airliner crossing the country and hit turbulence? Well, that's what it's basically like, and it has been like since I took off. Since we have such a good view of it right now, I'm going to turn slightly to the right. And there you see Lake Rathbun. Now, it's not nearly as big as Lake Red Rock or Sailorville, but these lakes are actually visible from satellite images up in space. So Lake Rathbun basically runs along the southern border of the state of Iowa, and that's where it is. Now, some folks out there that are paying attention to my instruments will most likely notice that I'm slowing down the Luscombe. And the reason I'm doing that is I've reduced my engine RPMs down because it is a beautiful day and I want to conserve on my fuel burn as much as possible, so I've just reduced my engine RPMs because I'm not really in a hurry to get anywhere. So that's why I'm going slower. And once again, full disclaimer, I'm not a certified flight instructor. I'm just a guy that is sharing his love of aviation with people. So this area of the state where you're looking at, both forward, off to the left, and off to the right, a lot of coal mining activity. When Iowa was first settled, they discovered coal. There were a lot of underground coal mines because that was just simply the way that a lot of things were done out on the East Coast. But they found that a lot of the veins of coal in Iowa were extremely shallow, shall we say. Sometimes 50 feet under the surface. Sometimes even closer. And so once heavy machinery became available, larger earth-moving equipment, then it was cheaper for the coal mine owners to do what we called strip mining, which is just basically stripping away all the topsoil to get down to the coal and mine it. That left a lot of ugly scars over Iowa. When I was first starting to fly back in the 1970s, this area of the state was just littered with visible scars across the landscape because of the coal mining activities. So the state of Iowa became known for doing what they called reclamation, where they allocated money to clean it up as much as possible. So that's why everything looks different today compared to back in the 1970s and earlier. Right now it doesn't really matter how much I throttle back, she still wants to climb. There's just tons of lift today. But hopefully this gives you a little aerial tour of Iowa that you'd never see because we're in the middle of what they call flyover country. And so a lot of people think, well, all Iowa is about is corn and soybeans and pigs and things like that. But every time that I've taken somebody flying, especially in this part of the state, they just marvel at the diversity in the landscape. All the trees, the fields, all the different colors. They just comment on that constantly. So once we get to Albia, we will begin to swing back towards Knoxville, but I brought you here for a reason, to show you an area of the state that has been lost to history, but it does regard coal mining. Okay, I can see the Albia airport that is off to the southeast of the city. Radio today has been awfully quiet. I'm not hearing much traffic at all, are you? There might have been some people that went up to fly, and then once they encountered the air that we're in, they decided to go fly a different day. So there's the city of Albia, Iowa. And I'm going to begin to turn here off to the north-northeast. You will see a lake here, but what you do not see is there used to be a huge community here built around a coal mine. There was a town here that was called Buxton, B-U-X-T-O-N, Buxton, Iowa. One of the largest mining towns ever in the state of Iowa. And my grandfather took me here, and the only thing that was left back in the 1960s was he could show me where the company store's vault used to be, and that was it. But right here, right in front of us, was Buxton. And what made Buxton so special was my grandfather told me that, and it's borne out, by historians, that in Buxton, it was racially mixed to where it was like a 50-50 split. And all people from all over the world worked together, and according to my grandfather, harmoniously here in Buxton. And I always found that to be rather amazing, especially when you look at the world today and you see a lot of craziness going on in the world. But here in Iowa, right here in front of you, was a place where that actually happened. My grandfather worked in this mine for so long while it was active, it contributed to the demise of his health. He developed a condition known as black lung disease, which eventually led to taking his life. So he succumbed to cancer earlier than he should have. One of the last underground coal mines that was operating in Iowa and was still active in Iowa back in the 1980s was right here, a town called Lavilla, Iowa. Now people that look at it and they look at the spelling, they would say, it looks like it's saying Lavilia. Well, we called it Lavilla. And it was an underground mine. The entrance of it was actually here on the north side of town, and it was visible from the road. This road, by the way, is Iowa Highway 5. Cuts down all the way to the southeastern part of the state of Iowa. Right there, we got into a bunch of lift again. So my granddad worked here, and then there are other smatterings of little towns up here called Marysville, Bussey, Attica, Pershing, all through this route. My grandfather and also my great-grandfather worked the coal mines, and they had to actually be kind of mobile at the time. My great-grandfather wrote a book about it, and whenever a mine played out, meaning that it just wasn't worth digging anymore, they would actually hitch their horses to their very tiny houses, which were on skids, and they would pull them across the landscape to get to the next place where there was mines available and work. And sometimes they would do that in the winter. So here in front of us, I'm just passing over Lavilla. There's Hamilton. Over at the 2 o'clock position is Bussey. There's a little town hidden back there in the woods at about the 10 o'clock position called Marysville. All these places had coal mines that my family worked in. Now, also, directly ahead of us, you can see Lake Red Rock. But today is definitely a different day than it was yesterday as far as the weather and flyability. Because today, it's pretty turbulent up here. these areas here were also highly scarred with strip mines. So as you can see, for the most part, you're not seeing those scars across the Iowa landscape, which means that the reclamation efforts did actually do some good and they were effective. But you will occasionally find different spots where they are. Actually, right off my nose here, I can see parts of a strip mine. I'm going to point you toward that for a second. And I'm going to nose down. So that's what an old strip mine looks like from the air. You can see part of it still over here coming off the nose. So there's still bits that they didn't get, but by and large, I would have to say that they did a good job. What's left of the town of Marysville, which also was a coal mining operation, was off here at my 10 o'clock position. I'll turn towards it for a moment. To the average person, that would not look like a town today, but it was a thriving little community for a while. But thank you for joining us today as I'm going along on this little sentimental journey through Iowa. And I hope that this just shows you a part of the state of Iowa that you would never see, never dreamed existed, and shows you some of the fun of flying. You know, being able to see things and just get out there and have your own adventures. We only live once, and so live it to the fullest. Again, thanks for watching. We'll talk to you later.